Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar on AI in accountancy, from compliance burden to competitive edge, hosted by PFP. We're absolutely delighted to have a leading expert on this subject, Liliana Bas, as our guest presenter. If you have any questions, we invite you to post them in the Q&A icon on the meeting control bar. If you click on that at the top, you'll see a space where you can post your questions. And just to let you know that the slide deck and the recording of the webinar will be circulated tomorrow. My name's Andrew Kilgore. I'm part of the leadership team at Geo Underwriting, where PFP now sits as a specialist brand. As you may be aware, PFP works with many of the UK's largest accountancy firms, as well as thousands of small and medium-sized practices, offering the UK's leading fee protection scheme, protecting your clients against HMRC tax investigations with their comprehensive cover and expert tax advice. As part of Geo Underwriting, PFP is also now part of the wider Ardonna Group, one of the world's largest insurance distribution platforms, and a top 20 global insurance broker with over 12,000 employees in more than 250 locations. Now, let me introduce our guest, Liliana Bas. Liliana is the founder of Cohara, an AI transformation partner, helping SME professional service firms adopt AI safely, responsibly, and with tangible return on investment. With a grounding in accountancy and later client management in the SaaS sector, she bridges the realities of professional services with the possibilities of emerging technology. Having worked alongside leading experts in AI and business transformation, she brings insight across automation, security, and change enablement, with a focus on trust, compliance, and keeping people at the centre of progress. I'm confident that this is going to be a very interesting webinar. So Liliana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you so much, Connie, as well, for the introduction. It's great to be here. And what we'll cover today, as Andrew mentioned, is going over what's actually happening in accountancy and the reality in the AI space. And what we'll cover today is going to be HMRC, of course, what's happening there with AI. We'll then delve into the compliance side, the security and the realities of that in the world, and especially the accountancy space, transitioning then into tools, what can you actually use, what's actually being used in the profession right now too, what you can start with, a roadmap of where to begin, where to start, because there is so much noise out there. And then what we'll do is we'll transition into trends and shifts and how this is all affecting the accountancy profession too. So to kick off and to really set the tone, the way that I'll begin is by saying that AI isn't coming, it is already here. So it's already inside the UK regulatory system. I mean, HMRC is using it to scan filings. The FRC are using it in writing into audit standards. You've got the ICO, which are enforcing it under GDPR, and then the ICAEW and the ACCA, which are now starting to monitor it inside firms. So the biggest shift that is happening everywhere, really, is that we are now moving from trusting processes to how it's been done to now asking and demanding for evidence of the controls of it and the governance around it. So the real punchline really is here that regulators aren't going to be asking you, did you use AI tools? They're going to be asking us and asking you all, show us your controls and how you govern it well. So when we're thinking about HMRC today, it is already AI powered. And by 2030, 9 out of 10 interactions are planned to be using AI. So think about things like chatbots and voice ID and automated nudges. And then when we have as well is already 20 million people using HMRC's online account, alongside 6 million people in the app. And behind the scenes, AI is already at work. It's doing things like quietly scanning VAT returns, to detecting fraud, to flagging risks. And what this means for you is that many client queries are no longer going to be hit by a human caseworker first. So they're going to be filtered by algorithms, and that means that filings must be watertight because the first line of judgment is now going to be AI. And
Sorry, Liliana, I don't think that we can see your slides at the moment. I don't know whether you're still sharing your screen. Would you be able to, or do you want us to share from our deck.
Absolutely. I am so sorry. I thought that
No,
was
don't worry. Don't worry.
There we go. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the
Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you know what, Nicoletta? If you do have access to the slides, that would be brilliant, as it's showing up as a red screen for me. So I think it might be live on my side, but it might not be coming up. So
Okay. One
if
second.
not, let me how to share screen. Ah, hang on a moment. Is that working by chance?
Yes, that's
Oh,
perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you mid-flow. Thanks, Liliana.
No.
All right.
So glad you called that out. Thank you. Brilliant. Well, in that case, you guys can see now some colourful statistics to go alongside all of this. But yes, so the most important thing is that the client queries that you're going to be having come in are no longer going to be hitting a human caseworker first. Your line of defense is going to be from judgment of an AI that they're going to be hitting first. But why is all this happening? Why is HMRC expanding into this? So as a lot of you know, HMRC's big goal is to be able to reduce and close the 5.3 tax gap. And what they're going to be using and why they introduced AI into this is to be able to help close it. So what it's going to mean is that AI models will now continuously scan submissions. And then what HMRC have done is they've hired 5,500 compliance officers, which are now being trained on AI alerts. Alongside taxpayers that are now going to be able to be analysed continuously, much more real time, which will receive nudges mid-year, not just at filing annually. So the biggest impact for you all in all this is that compliance is no longer a once a year annual tidy up that happens. It is going to be something that's going to be rolling continuously, and it's going to be live. So the way that I want you to think about this is imagine a scenario. So come around October, and you say, let's say you have a client ring you in a bit of a panic. They say, hi, HMRC has flagged my VAT return as high risk. I've had a notice through the app or a letter. What do I do? So what matters here is whether that return was prepared manually or assisted with AI, the question will remain the same of how strong is your evidence. So if you can quickly pull the working papers and show the invoices and show the checks and demonstrate your firm's review process, you can calm the client down and respond to HMRC confidently. And if you can't, the process is undocumented or the review step was skipped, then you're going to be a bit more of a firefighting situation. So the point really isn't whether you used AI in the prep, it's whether you can evidence the controls around how you were able to do it, and that's what HMRC will expect, and that's what will protect your client relationship. So what I've outlined here as well is over the next 3 slides is the 3 regulatory bodies as well, and how they will be monitoring and working with AI in relationship with you. So when we're thinking about the FRC, this is for my auditors in the call, from June 25, every audit file must show 3 things if AI is involved. So essentially what it was used for, what its limitations were, and who reviewed and challenged the output. So this isn't so much about red tape, it's just much more around showing that the tech enhances and showing the proof that the tech enhances audit quality. So a concise note, even something like tool X was used for task Y, reviewer challenged the anomalies, is sufficient evidence of judgment. And what we'll do as we go through the presentation, I'll show you some basic frameworks that you guys can stick to and be able to take away from the conversation today, of how you can log it, things like AI registry. But that's something of note to you all. And then we have another really important body is the ICO. So when AI touches personal data, the ICO expects proof you've thought it through. So DPAAs are the preferred way. In plain English, of course, we've got what data went in, what could go wrong, and how you prevented it. And then, of course, we have the GDPR side. So no solely automated decisions if they significantly affect someone's rights or money. So even in everyday uses, things like invoice scanning or AML checks or payroll categorization count. And AI can suggest, but the big important takeaway in all this is that only a human can decide. And of course, then we have the ICAEW and the ACCA, and the important things for them that they'll be working through with you when they do practice visits, and the things that they'll want to be highlighted and have conversations around is the ethics. And the ethics code has not changed in spirit at all, but AI does make it sharper. So when we're thinking about integrity, the important point to take away is there's no unchecked AI outputs. When we're thinking about competence, we want to make sure that staff are trained on limits and confidentiality. Don't feed client data into uncontrolled tools. Really, really important. And practice monitoring is now looking for AI governance over all else. So if you can't show an AI register or training notes or review evidence, it will be marked down as a weakness. And the important thing to know is that reviewers aren't anti-AI by any means, but they are very pro-proof, which is the important thing to keep in mind. And then, as a gentle reminder to you all of something that happened, I'm not sure how familiar some of you will be, but we, in 2025, the UK judges called out a lawyer filing fake AI-generated case citations. Now, that might sound quite traumatic and problematic at that too, but the most important point of why I bring this up to you all is that the problem wasn't AI, it was the lack of review. So for you all, the parallel is really, really simple. If AI drafts a note, a memo, or even a client email, your role is to apply the same professional judgment that you always have. And when you add your review and add your expertise, AI does become a time saver and a support tool. And the risk only comes in when we forget that we are the final filter. And that's something that you accountants are fantastic at already anyway. So to be able to really enlighten that. And the unifying theme through it all, the things that I want you to consider and remember to be able to satisfy all of the 5 governing bodies for you all. We've got a simple framework, a governance framework, as I like to say it. We've got inventory. So log your tools and their purpose. We've got assess. So do a quick risk note. So when personal data was used, DPIAs where necessary. I want you to document. So record purpose and limits and oversight. Make sure you train. So make sure the staff know the limitations, the boundaries, alongside some of the security risks that can happen. Alongside audit, test the outputs and keep an exceptions log. And this one framework will be able to satisfy everybody from HMRC to ICAEW to ICO. And the really important thing to bear in mind around all these is that this isn't about replacing accountants in any way, but it is raising the bar massively. And regulators are united amongst them all in one demand, which is just show us your controls, show us your evidence, show us your governance. And the firms who log it and review it and evidence it won't just be the ones who survive it and just get past this bit of compliance and a bit of a headache at times, but you'll stand out as trusted and credible and the modern advisors in the field. And that's the real competitive edge in the age of AI. Now, before heading into the security and compliance side of things, the fun part, Andrew, is there any questions from the audience at all? Or
I have a couple of questions, and just a reminder as well, if anyone would like to post questions, please use the Q&A icon on the control bar. So Liliana, how do we even know if an AI tool is training on client data or not?
Oh, brilliant question, Andrew, brilliant question. So when you are using AI tools, my biggest recommendation is you go onto the platform or the vendor who is allowing you to use the AI. So for example, ChatGPT or Microsoft, or if you're using a SaaS platform online, I would highly encourage you to look at the data protection policy, as this will outline exactly how they are handling your data, things whether they're GDPR compliant, and outline all of these. If you're unable to get it there, I'd say to reach out directly to the vendor. And if you're still struggling, my first point of action to you will say, I would probably hold off, because if there is this much hesitancy or not so much transparency, there might be a reason that whilst they're developing everything, they're not entirely GDPR compliant or one of the sort. So check the data policy, reach out to their account manager, do a bit of scoping yourself. And if you can't find something concrete that you feel really comfortable with, go with a primary no.
Great. Thank you, Liliana. This one's a little bit more technical. You mentioned the mid-year queries, which would clearly come from the MTD filings. However, HMRC cannot open inquiries into these filings. So how do you feel that this will be done?
Absolutely. Great question again. Great question. So with making text digital, HMRC, especially with the rollout of AI, have not gained any more powers than they already have. So when they're going to be reaching out, it's not necessarily going to be the case of we're opening a legal query against you. It's going to be much more of a gentle nudge as they've spotted an anomaly with the taxpayer's return or whatever it might have been towards it. So they've flagged it in that way. And in terms of how it's going to be working, because I imagine there might be a follow-up question of how is this actually integrating AI with HMRC in the way that they're going to be scanning all these two, is, as some of you might be familiar, Connect is already a platform that HMRC uses. And the way that it does it is it highlights and outlines all these different data points for HMRC to look through. Previously, without AI, what happened is there was an automation platform. So, for example, you'd have your taxpayer's account and you were able to compare it, or if there was an anomaly, if X meets Y, then flag this. Now, with the introduction of AI, it's now got the same access to Connect to all the data platforms that it had previously. However, what it's able to do is at a much larger scale and incredibly more intelligently able to compare against other categories that the taxpayer falls within, whether creates a risk score of sorts. Okay, how risky are they in comparison with this person, this category, this one, and creates a profile, and it looks out for anomalies. So that's the way that it's able to do it, if that answers the question, Andrew.
Super, that's a very comprehensive answer. Thank you very much. That's all we have in questions for now, Liliana.
Brilliant, no worries at all. Fantastic. So skipping into the security, the compliance part. So I promise this is not about drowning any of you in GDPR clauses or 40-page policies of any sorts. The way that I like to think about it is your seatbelt for AI. So there is one golden rule that I like to think of, and that's treat AI like any other cloud app. So with one extra question. And the extra question being is, will client data be used to train the model? And if the answer is yes, stop and rethink. And if the answer is no, treat it like Office 365 or Xero or Sage, standard vendor due diligence, access controls, and human oversight. And then when we're thinking about best practices around these kinds of things, we've got to consider it doesn't have to be a 20-page checklist by any means. Just really keep it simple. Vendor due diligence as you would normally. So is the data stored in the UK or the EU? Are you considering a two-factor login? Do you have access to that? Data deletion, opt-out of training, and then things like running DPIAs. So what data, what risks, how to prevent, really, really important here, just to be able to flag the risk notes. Human sign-off, of course, especially, as AI can draft, humans approves, and no exceptions to this at all. And document in files, so tools, scope, limits, reviewer, exceptions. Really, really important to carry this out, but this would be part of your normal due diligence for any vendor anyway. Now, when we're thinking about the cyber reality, a really, really, really important one. The uncomfortable truth is that AI isn't just helping us all. Fraudsters are using it too. So thinking about phishing emails, they're now so polished that they can mimic client instructions or bank notices or internal messages, and they are becoming so advanced they can pass spell checks and everything of the sort. And then there's also the side of convincing voice deepfakes, which are significantly on the rise too, which have been used to impersonate CEOs and even finance directors in one UK case. And staff nearly wired 6 figures because the voice sounded exactly like their boss. It's the technology behind it is also very interesting. All they need is 30-second clip of a phone or a podcast or a clip of any sort to be able to create this. And the good thing is for your side is most of you already have controls in place, so it's not reinventing the wheel by any means. So having controls like callbacks and dual approval, you definitely don't need to rip that up. The win is making sure nobody shortcuts the basics in the situation. So even a 30-second callback on an unusual payment can be the difference between business as usual and someone's very bad day. So no need to reinvent the wheel at all. Just keep to the basics, make sure you hammer them on, and no side passing on those. Now, having a focus as well on ethics. I think the important thing is working with you all in the profession is that you are the custodians of trust. And the really important thing is that clients don't pay you just for compliance. They pay you because they trust you with their money, with the data, and their future. So when it comes to AI, ethics is by no means an add-on. It is the core of the role. And this will be banging on as well about the basics, but the way that you can do that and make sure that you follow on these ethics is don't signing off, not feeding anything confidential into any uncontrolled systems. Don't sign off any unchecked outputs, and train your team so that they are knowledgeable and aware of the boundaries. And what this means is that it's not about ticking boxes. It's about living the values of your profession and the real currency that you work within. Now, before we jump into the fun part, what all of you would like to see, of the practicalities of what we can use, what's actually happening with the tools. The way that I like to think about this side for you guys is the seatbelt framework. So I've talked about a really comprehensive 5-step governance one. Do this, do this, do this. So that's the manual, as I mentioned earlier, but I want to be very real. Most of us don't think about the manual every single time we get into a car. What do we actually do? We buckle our seatbelt, quick, simple, and automatic. And here is your seatbelt for AI that I'd like you all to use. So firstly, log it, check it, and oversee it. So whatever tool or workflow you're using, I want you to jot it down. With checking it, test the output, make sure someone's looked over it, and overseeing it is making sure that someone senior is accountable with the output and the checking of it too. That's it. That's 3 quick habits to make sure you stop flying through the windscreen. And the way that I want you to think about it is think of governance as the whole car, the engine, the brakes, the lights, the whole thing. And the seatbelt is by no means separate. It's just the bit that you reach for every time. The one that builds the structure and keeps others the front of mind when you do it. Brilliant. And now before we head into the next slide, Andrew, any other questions that have popped in?
Yes, I have another one. This is the kind of question I would ask, Liliana. This feels like me. Is AI really worth the hassle once you add in all these security and compliance hoops?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's one of the most common ones that I hear all around. Brilliant question. So what I will say is it's a hassle. I will say it's to be able to make sure everything is set up and in practice is going to be important, and it's going to feel like red tape. But I'll say 2 things around it. And first one is that this is becoming non-negotiable. So regardless of whether you'd want to or not, this is something that you are already using AI within the company, as we'll talk through the slides here already. If that's through Outlook, if that's through Teams, whatever way it is already being used. So what it means is that you hold a responsibility of governance of the tools that you already have in place. And in terms of the regulating bodies, the way that we've seen this speed up is quicker than ever. Even when the cloud came around, it was much more the case that regulators were catching up after the fact that it happened. Now, within the last 2 years, this has incredibly shot up, and regulators are front of mind and making sure that they are secured within it. So what it means, things like practice visits and everything else will becoming more and more and more common to be able to be seen. So it's going to be a pain, but it's going to have to be done, is basically what I'm trying to say. And 2, it's going to be a pain for a little bit to be able to sort out the first week or getting through the learning pains, but the return on the investment of this is absolutely incredible. And the pain is so marginal to the gains that you stand to make by introducing AI. And what we'll do is we'll run through another section in the slides just to actually outline to you what that looks like and what the investment looks like to actually set up the governance and set up all these systems just to make sure you have a register and the controls to log around it and to what you actually get out of it. And another point I'll definitely worth making is start small. It doesn't have to be a big, massive project that you have to roll out and spend hours and hours on. Start small, have a register, log it, review it, check it, and build from there.
Brilliant, super answer. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Andrew. Amazing. Right, now down to the tools and practice. So I know I've talked a lot about rules and guardrails and all that stuff. So let's talk about the bit you actually care about. What can AI actually do for you in the real world today? So because if all you hear is theory, it stays abstract, and I want to make it a bit more concrete. And what it looks like inside your firms, with clients, with staff on a Monday morning. So where to start? What I'll say is that most firms are genuinely further along than they think. So Outlook and Teams, as I just mentioned, they already have drafting replies and summarizing meetings. Xero and Sage are already embedding an AI in categorization and reconciliation and things like anomaly spotting. And even your spam filter is AI, which is thank goodness for that, which is why you're not knee deep in junk mail every single morning. So this is very much not the case of should you use AI. It's about taking control of the AI you're already using and deciding where it can add even more value. Now, I know I'm conscious that we'll likely have a mix of individuals who have experimented heavily with AI, who are maybe a bit more new to it and trying to find out how to dip your toes in. So what I've started with is some very basic, easy wins to be able to try yourselves. You can do after the call, within the next week or so, just to get comfortable around it. So the things that you can even try tomorrow is email help, for example. So Outlook Copilot can draft some really tricky replies when you're scavenging and thinking, okay, what do I say to this? How do I word this? And even if that means 10 minutes saved on an email here and there a few times a week, that can add up to an hour or two. Then we're thinking about things like meeting notes. You're already having these embedded in a lot of the platforms that you use. So Teams or Zooms can spit out action lists, and there's going to be a lot less of who said what debates going on. And then what you can do from that is essentially assign the action items alongside, have a review of everything that was said, and go from there. As well, Excel support, as I'm sure many of you have already had to play around with. AI can explain formulas and build pivot tables and spots errors, and that's hours of head scratching gone. And even if you're looking at things like education and wanting to find out more, things like common tools, Copilot, or Gemini, or even ChatGPT are excellent at being able to help study and learn different things. So if you're wanting to find out a bit more about how do you actually build Excel formulas or whatever it might be, you've got a study buddy that you can then be able to work with. There are a lot of prompts online that you can just Google to be able to help get the support of how do you be able to create a, let's say, Excel AI agent to be able to help you learn all these different things and go from there. Then you have things like policy drafting. So if you need a new AML or expense update policy, then AI can give you a skeleton, and then you edit, and then something that used to take half a day has been reduced down to an hour for review and editing. And even things like templates, so engagement letters or reminders or year-end notes, AI can do the first drafts for you, and then you polish and edit and review. And the good things is that these aren't risky by any means. They're just little productivity boosters for you to have fun with, and a safe way for skeptics to perhaps dip a toe in, see what comes of it. And the good thing is there are a lot of resources online. And even if you want help, I would seriously consider working with AI and asking it, hey, I want to find out a bit more about this. Can you support it? And how would you want to help me support it? What questions do you need from me? What would you need me to answer to create a learning plan, for example, around these different tools or knowledge bases that you'd want to understand, and go from there. And then when we're thinking a bit more on the wider industry side, something that actual accountancies can use on a wider scale, these are some of the examples and workflows that directly impact things like clients and firm efficiency that I've seen work and I've worked within. So we have, for example, invoice capture and VAT characterization. So what happens here is AI pulls from invoices and suggests VAT codes, and staff review and post. So many of you will know this, but there's already tools out there like this, just off the shelf that you're able to work within, and you're able to develop these out yourself too. And the real return on this will be looking at 30 to 40 faster % VAT cycles and fewer HMRC nudges. And then you have things like client email triage. So all AI sorts shared inboxes, for example, and it's able to flag things like HMRC letters or draft safe replies to routine stuff. And then what this means is that managers are focusing more on the high priority client interactions and the strategic responses, and are saving anywhere from 3 to 5 hours weekly. And the way I like to think about this one is just having AI as being your personal little receptionist to help with it. Another good one is going to be management account drafting. So AI can draft things like profit and loss statements, balance sheets, and initial variance notes. The human steps in. The accountant refines the drafts, adds strategic insights, finalizes the reports, and then a lot of the time, what can be a half-day job gets turned into 30 minutes. And even things like accounts receivable nudges. So let's say you have some overdue invoices. AI can identify those and generate personalized follow-ups and reminders. So it can be something as easy and humanistic sounding as, "Hi John, just checking on invoice 103. And what tends to happen is the human on this side will be able to approve the communication sequences and intervene for complex cases, but you're able to see a reduction in things like death days for 5 to 10 days. So this can have a real cash flow impact. And then when we're actually looking at the stats behind it, there was a study done by ICAW and Ipsos in the UK. And what we've been able to find is that UK accountants are saying that already they're able to see 64% of them saving time with the use of AI. And the other side are already reporting AI cutting costs. And this is really interesting because the things that used to be able to take years, with things like cloud and Sage and the training involved and everything alongside it, used to take quite a while to be able to see the real return. But firms are being able to see the gains within weeks. But I think that AI is a much bigger impact than just time saved and finances and cost cutting, because what its real advantage is, I think, the capacity unlock that happens within it, alongside the real impact that it has on the people that work within the company. So when we're thinking about this, when staff spend less time on like drudge, you improve retention because people are staying for the advisory work, not necessarily the admin side. And then what happens is clients feel faster turnaround and better insights. And then you shift from compliance margins to advisory growth. And the ROI doesn't get stuck within focusing on hours back. It's happier staff, happier clients, and a stronger firm that goes with it, which is incredible to see. And what I'll do is on the next few slides, we'll cover things of like, how do you actually do this? How do you calculate ROI, and show you a real example on the scalability and the impact of this. But what I want you to do is to take away that AI won't replace accountants by any means. It's going to clear the noise for you so that you can do the work that matters. So think of it as a junior. So it comes in, it drafts, and then the partner reviews. So except the junior never sleeps, never gets ill, and doesn't mind doing the grunt work side. And you still sign off, you still bring your judgment, you still bring your expertise, but you now get there faster and with more headspace for things like clients and insight and growth. And before we jump into where do you actually start with this all and how do you use it? Any questions, Andrew?
Yes, another one here, just referencing the AI register and risk assessments that a business might have. How often should they be reviewed?
Great question. So these would be the same as any other of the real policies that any company would have. I would say annually, and then unless you're adding something to the register, then obviously on a as and when ad hoc basis.
Super, thank you. Just to remind everyone, there's still time to add questions if you have any more. Just use the Q&A icon on the control bar. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew. Awesome. Right. We've seen the rules, we've seen the tools. The big question is, where do we actually start? Because the number one reason that I hear on firms stalling on AI is overwhelm. Is too many tools, too much theory, not a lot of clear paths. So what I'll do is I'll give you a simple framework that you can take away. And the first place that I recommend all of you to start when starting to think about AI is track your time. Really shine a light on where your hours go. So get your team to track the time for 2 to 3 weeks. And then what you can do is spot the repetitive, the low value tasks, the ones maybe nobody enjoys, or the ones that really block the high value tasks. So for example, if a team is spending 7 hours weekly chasing overdue invoices, that's your target, that's the red flag, and that's a place to test AI. And I'd recommend building out a list of these and being able to analyze and go from there. And this by any means isn't about chasing shiny tools. It's about starting with the pain points that you already know exist. That's the most important thing. And then let's say you found the pain points, you figure these out, and okay, right, these are our bottlenecks. I want you to start imagining the capacity gain. So once you find a pain point, ask a simple question. What if 30 to 80% of this was taken off our plate? So, for example, 5 hours of inbox time freed would mean more advisory conversations. If half a day of management account prep was taken away, that would mean more time spent with clients. So this step makes the benefit very real, and it shifts AI from buzzwords to an actual business case for you. And then what I'd recommend to do after this, which is another very important one, is scan what you already have. The biggest mistakes that firms make is trying to do AI everywhere and adding all these different tools and all this new stuff. But the reality is, especially in your profession, you have access to a lot of very good things. So if it's Microsoft Copilot features in Office 365 or Zero AI categorization and insights or Sage, and if you have access to an account manager, call them, speak with them, email them, and reach out to support, because a lot of these things will already be in your package. And then what that means is you're not wasting as much money on new tools and all these new shiny things, because you already have the accessibility within your stack. And then another big thing, so really importantly, don't do AI everywhere. That's how a lot of projects stall. Pick one workflow. So instead of doing 10 or 5, whatever it is, pick one bottleneck, one workflow, one small pilot. Then what I want you to do is prove the value, show the ROI in one place, and then from there expand. So build confidence before you do scaling, and that can be anything from management accounts to email triage or data nudges. Pick one and go from there. Now, a lot of the practical questions that you will have is, how do you actually figure out the numbers and the ROI on AI? How does it actually work, especially within accountancy in this profession? So a real example, let's say we have management accounts and prep currently takes around 4 hours per client per month. So what we'll do is, let's say with AI drafting the first version, this drops it down to 1 hour review and polish, that's it. So that would be 3 hours saved per client per month. Then when we're thinking about numbers on this side, we're thinking about the cost. So this is the average per hour cost for an account manager in a managerial role. So let's say we have £30 per hour in the UK. If you're saving 3 monthly, that's £90 per client. And annually, we're looking at £1,080, which is a decent amount. It's not bad. It's a good saving. But the real beauty of AI is in the scalability of it. So if we have 1,080 per client per year, what does that look like when we transition that to 20 clients? We have £21,600. That is a cost saving as a result of introducing AI to do a simple thing as management accounts. Okay, then what happens when we have 50 clients? Then we're going to be looking at 54,000 for 50 client savings through the introduction of AI into this one workflow. And what I want you to really focus on is the compounding effect across multiple processes, because this is just the one workflow that allows this. And this has got a massive ripple effect. Those hours aren't just saved, they're avoided, and they create room for things like faster turnaround for clients, more advisory conversations, and less pressure on your team. And that's why firms report ROI within weeks, not just years. So there we go. And then moving to the guardrails around it. Of step 5, when we're looking at how do we actually do it and how do we roll it out. As I've mentioned in the 2 frameworks, which is the seatbelt framework and the 5-step governance framework, is log it, check it, oversee it. Even for a small pilot, put some basic guardrails in place, and this will be able to keep you safe whilst you're experimenting, to make sure you're satisfying all regulatory bodies, making sure your clients are safe, and looking after your team and building up a new habit of AI governance in their workflows. And then once you have these in place, once you've carried out an experiment, what I'd say is just build from there, expand. So if that's adding a second workflow or creating an AI committee or champions within, or formalizing by having an AI policy for your staff, or how they can get involved. And by any means, this isn't a transformation overnight. It's a step-by-step, just like we did with cloud. So that's very, very important to bear in mind. So the important takeaway for you all is find the drudge, imagine the game, scan your stack, pick one workflow, guardrail it, measure ROI, and build from there. That's it. That's your starter playbook. No jargon, no consultants, no 200-slide strategies, just one step at a time, with evidence and oversight and client trust leading the way for all of you. Now, before we understand what this actually looks like within the profession, any questions, Andrew, or you?
Yes, so this is one that I've thought about quite a bit as well, Liliana, with AI tools becoming so much more accessible to everybody.
Yes.
We're getting to the point where a lot of people will have access to their own AI tools at home.
Yes.
So what happens if the staff working for a business start to use their own personal AI tools on the work that they're doing for the firm? What sort of implications does that have? I think there's something called shadow AI, isn't there, where people don't necessarily know it's being used. So can you talk us through the implications of that and how it might be dealt with?
Absolutely. Brilliant question. Yes, shadow AI, and it is a massive rise of shadow AI and everything that's going on around it. So what I'll say is this. What we're seeing, especially as we dive into the trends and talent shift, we'll see generationally that individuals are using AI in their personal work. So work aside, things like learning or support or life coaching or research, whatever it may be, uni assignments. So individuals are already becoming more comfortable and more accustomed that this is an expectation for the way that they're working and thinking. So with companies, there is a responsibility to your staff will likely want to use them, a percentage of them will. So creating a sandbox environment for them. So doing 2 things. For one, training is very, very important on the implications of AI and its usage. So client data, security, compliance, why it's important to them and how it can help them work. Education is absolutely crucial to making sure that staff don't do things like shadow AI and things like expose the firm to vulnerable AI data leakages or whatever it may be. So I'd say educate, very, very important. And 2, give them a place to channel that. If people are innovative and curious and want to think about ways that they can expand it to make the work better and more and better quality for themselves, the company, and the clients, give them sandbox. Educate them on the tools that they do have access to. If that's Gemini, if that's Copilot, if that's an enterprise level ChatGPT, whatever it may be, educate them on the access to tools that they have so that they can channel it that way to be able to aid the firm. Because what all of you have access to and what all of you are brilliant at is that you have combined experience in your lifetime to different ways of thinking, to different tools you've had access to different leadership, to different types of work that me or Andrew or nobody else will be able to replicate. And when it comes to AI, this is an incredibly important thing because it means that you also have access that once you start working with it and get comfortable to understand what its limitations are, but also what it can do, you're going to start uncovering things for the firm, for yourself, for the company, of things that the better ways of doing things and better ways to think about it. So if a company can leverage that and say, okay, we want to give our people the opportunity to play, have fun, innovate within our sandbox, within a safe environment to help us. The firm starts rolling and becoming more innovative. It's working with the staff and they're included as part of the change, and it's directly helping them. So the firm grows stronger in the way that it's building and innovating, keeping everybody safe and making sure everybody is involved with the change.
Marvellous. That's a really good answer, and such an important thing, I think, for everybody to be considering. Thank you, Liliana. That's the last of our questions. We do still have some time for questions if anyone wants to put any more in the chat box. Thank you. In the Q&A box.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Awesome. So to do a bit of a speed run into trends and talent shifts as well, because this is very interesting and very relevant to the question too, of what's happening to the profession, especially after the introduction to AI and just generally. So when we talked about guardrails, we talked about practical wins, mapped roadmap, and what I want us to do is zoom out for a minute and look at the bigger picture. And what's happening in the profession and where it's actually going. Because if you only look at AI as compliance risk, you are going to be missing the opportunity here. The real story is how it's reshaping the profession itself. So first up, adoption. Half of firms are already using AI daily. And this isn't pilots, this isn't experiments, it's daily. So that's faster than cloud ever spread. So remember how long it took for firms to move off desktop into Sage? It's moving twice as fast in this field. And the kicker really is that this isn't future tech. It's if your teams aren't using it at work, chances are they are already using it at home. And to draft emails or summarize meetings or prep uni assignments, the genie is already out of the bottle. So that's something for us to consider. And then when we're thinking about the generational tailwind here, we're thinking about talent. So 91% of under 25s say that they want to work with AI. So young professionals want to be able to embrace these tools. And when we're looking at actual stats around your workforce and what that's going to be looking like, by 2033, Gen Z and Alpha will make up half of the accountancy workforce. So to them, AI isn't innovation by any means. It is the normality, it's the norm. And the risk isn't that juniors won't use it, it's that they will, quietly without guidance, unless you give them a safe sandbox environment and proper oversight, as I mentioned. And the good thing is that you can flip it around and they can become your AI champions. So the good thing is that the younger generations, they bring speed, you bring the skepticism, and together that's quite a winning mix, because what that allows you to do is bounce off each other and create an immense learning opportunity for both yourself and your juniors coming into the workforce. And I'm also very mindful that there's another trend that doesn't get enough airtime, is that AI could actually help solve the professional talent crisis. So right now, there was a study that was done, and two out of 5 people outside of accountancy said that they'd consider joining if the grudge work was reduced. So think about that. People who never touched a profession are suddenly interested if they don't spend their lives in spreadsheets. And that's a branding shift. Everything from your job fairs at schools and universities, shifting from tied up in admin and paperwork to transitioning into, okay, we want you to be trusted problem solvers with time for your clients, which is incredibly valuable, as I understand everything that's going on in the field, talent shortages and everything that falls around it. So this can also help with your retention too. If your staff are able to do more of the things that they enjoy, the things that they love, the things that light them up, if that is client facing or advisory or insight, then what you're able to build is a real culture that will allow them and want to stay, as you'll be moving ahead of competitors. You'll be moving into the work that humans are not able to be replaced for, that they're going to be most valued for, that most of you went to school for, and expand on that front. And the real interesting side is as well what's happening inside firms. So there is a big shift that is happening, and 95% of firms are saying that AI is already cutting down compliance time. And 79% expect advisory services to grow in the next 5 years. And that's a double shift because compliance margins are shrinking whilst advisory demand is growing. And an example of this would be that a client says, zero draft in my VAT return. Why am I paying you? And the answer isn't going to be more compliance hours by any means. It's going to be advisory. So helping them understand their scenarios, managing their cash flow risks, guiding board level decisions. And AI moves the goalposts, absolutely, but firms that reskill will be the ones winning the game. And the really important part is that the human factor still decides in all of this. So the part that keeps us grounded is that tools decide whether you're compliant or competitive. It's the people within your firm that will. So the FRC now require audit files to show purpose, limits, and oversight in AI use cases. And the ICAEW says firms must train staff on AI limits. And translation of that is, it's not about having the flashiest tools, it's about having trained staff who know how to use it responsibly and properly. And the way that, like I'd mentioned earlier, is thinking back to the lawyers of fake AI citations. It wasn't the tool's fault, it was that people were failing to apply professional skepticism to usage of the tool. And the take around all of this with you today is that AI is shifting adoption, talent, and service mix faster than anything we've seen since cloud. So adoption is sprinting, young staff are ready, the drudge is shrinking, and advisory is rising. And that is good news. That is good news, because if you can get the basics right, the things like the roadmap, the guardrails, the training, you won't just be surviving the shift. You're going to be attracting better staff. You're going to be able to deliver more value to your clients and also build stronger client trust and relationships with it all today. Now, I'm conscious that we've covered a lot today and I'm conscious of time. So the big picture for all of you is AI isn't just another piece of tech, it's a strategic shift in how the profession works. So the firm that treats it as a compliance headache will get by, but the firms that treat it as a strategic opportunity, they will be the ones leading. And in order, what to do next with all this is start small, but start. Pick one thing that everybody in the room groans about and just one, and go from there. You'll be able to have access to the slides as well afterwards. So have a look at the governance framework, have a look at where to start. And then decide if you're going solo or if you want a guide. So loads of firms are able to figure this out by themselves, and that's absolutely fine. And sometimes it's just a bit faster and easier and a bit less painful to lean in on someone who's already been through it. And really importantly, not to flog some tools at you that you don't need, but to help you cut through the noise and make the stuff actually work in your firm. So on my side, if there's any other questions that fall through after this meetings, as I'm conscious that every firm's at a different stage, some are experimenting, others are still thinking, where do I even start? Either way, whatever stage you're in, if you have questions, if you want to talk it through, I offer free 30-minute consultations. So no strings, no sales pitch, just a chance to chat about your firm and your questions and hopefully point you in the right direction. But my final line to you all is AI isn't replacing accountants by any means, but it is creating a gap between the firms who are leaning in now and the ones who are keeping their head in the sand. And your wedge won't come from flashy tools, it'll come from trust and judgment and decisions to move the profession, not behind it. Okay.
Thank you, Liliana. That was absolutely fascinating, incredibly comprehensive. Thank you so much for all that information. I know you're on LinkedIn. And if people want to follow you, they can do so there and get access to more content. So please reach out to Liliana if you'd like more information. Also, if you'd like to know more about the products and services available from PFP, you can contact the sales team on their email address, which is salesteam@pfp.uk.com. That's salesteam@pfp.uk.com. And as we said, we'll send out the slides and a copy of this recording across to you tomorrow. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to Liliana, and we hope you enjoy a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.